Hello and welcome to In Business Talks 2. We are excited to welcome you to our bonus episode, The Friday Fix. We are your hosts, Tracy and Ian Earle, founders of In Business, a networking and business support community. And together,
we are In Business. Every Friday we will be discussing a business-related subject with either one of our wonderful In Business networking members or a fellow business owner who'll be sharing their advice, thoughts or knowledge on a particular topic. Oh, and make sure you listen to the end of the show to hear our guests telling us about their favourite networking tip.
This week's episode is called Why It's Important to Systemise Your Business. Now it's time to welcome our special guest this week on the Friday Fix, Danielle Heward of DH Professional Solutions. Welcome, Danielle. Good to have you with us today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Danielle.
Danielle, tell us a bit about what you do.
So, DH Professional Solutions provides business improvement services to environmental and social focused enterprises. So I work with the leaders of businesses to help them develop their people, improve their processes, utilise the right technology and monitor the right information. I work with small businesses who are looking to grow, who haven't yet put in the processes and systems or people development solutions that they might need to grow their business. And I also work with larger businesses who are, a bit more established and have been going for a bit longer, perhaps, who have reached the point where they recognise that they could be doing things in a better way, or perhaps something is going a bit wrong in the way that they're doing something, and they want help identifying opportunities to improve the way that their business operates.
You're going to talk to us today about systemising your business. Why is that so important?
So,
if you're a business owner,
systemising your business is something that you should really be looking at if you are wanting to grow your business or to scale your business up. So businesses can survive for a while as a small team, just kind of operating in the way that they happen to do things. But in order to make sure that your business is really effective, and definitely to put the foundations and the kind of infrastructure in place to grow, then you need to consider what is systemising your business, which by that I mean implementing really robust people, process, technology and information solutions to make sure your business is as effective as it can be.
Okay. And where do people start? How do the people start to do that? How do they start to implement those things?
Yeah, what should the first thoughts be? What are your suggestions? What should people be thinking about if they're looking to do this?
So my suggestion would be to start by looking at processes. So how things are done in your business. Firstly, probably from an overall point of view, but then starting to kind of dive a bit deeper into some of the detail around literally how things are done and what systems are used and the step-by-step actions that are taken to complete an activity within the business. So processes are the first place I would start. And you probably want to start by just documenting very simply to begin with how you do something. So like I say, the steps that you take to carry out something in the business.
So can you give an example of that? How would you an example of a basic document that you could complete? That what sort of information would you need to put on that document, just to give us an idea?
Yeah, so you can map out your processes in diagram form, which some people find helpful. So you would literally put a box that says what step one is, and then your next box would be whatever the step is that you do next. You have to bear in mind that some steps in the process might actually be a decision point, and that one of two or three things could happen from that point. So in terms of actually creating those diagrams, you need to probably make sure that you've got different symbols or different shapes to kind of identify what those different types of activities are. But you should also think about who does each of those steps, so which roles are involved and where systems are used as well, to consider where your start and end points are. So when you're doing that, you might want to look at it from either a customer value or a customer outcomes point of view to help you figure out which processes you're going to look at in which order. So you could have a customer sign up process, and you could have a booking customer appointments process, or you could have a process that looks at, how to actually deliver whatever the service is that you provide to the customer. And each one of those would probably be a separate process map. And then you might have kind of a procedure manual that goes alongside it that kind of describes what each of those steps are in words as well as the diagram.
So could you also do, thinking about, there are different processes, I suppose, for different areas when you run your business. There's things like the marketing process, isn't there? There's all the marketing functions you would need, all the sales process and the actual productivity, whatever all these things are. Is there a good place to start? What would be the very first thing you would focus on?
Yeah, usually I'd say the operation. So whatever the main function or the main service or the main kind of product that you produce, I would start there usually. But then, like you say, there are then usually kind of sales and marketing or HR or finance processes that are kind of bolt-ons, if you like. And can be quite standardized, or can be quite generic depending on what the business is. But it's definitely worth starting with the operation, and whatever the thing is that you do that makes you different, that's where you would probably start.
Right. And what, in your experience, are the sort of the biggest pitfalls then that people fall into? What are some of the traps when you're going to see a business? What are some of the traps that you found that people have fallen into?
It depends what stage the business is at. If this is the early stage that we're kind of talking about now, where you haven't yet got your processes documented at all, then it can be that you are perhaps doing things in a less effective or efficient way than you could be, and you just maybe haven't spotted where those opportunities are to improve because you just haven't got anything written down. Some of the other risks, obviously, if there are single points of contact in terms of a single person that's doing something, if that person, God forbid anything happens to them, then who's going to know what's in their head and how to do whatever it is that they're doing? So
Right.
it's something that can be quite overwhelming for people, and they think that documenting all of these processes is going to take a long time, and it's something that gets pushed to the bottom of the to-do list for quite a while. But it's definitely worth doing, and I think always just pick somewhere to start. And like I say, if you start with whatever the thing is that you're doing that is the main kind of bulk of what you do in your business, then that's as good a place as any to start, I'd say.
Yeah. And I suppose doing these things as well can highlight, once you start thinking about it more and actually writing a process down, maybe you can, do you find people spot things in there that shouldn't be in there, or hang on, why are we doing this, or what sort of things does it bring out usually?
Yeah, exactly that. So once you've got something written down, and even the process of actually writing it down and going, right, what happens next, what do we do there, you automatically start to go, well, why do we do that before that doesn't make any sense. Or we've realized that actually all of these things, all roads lead to this one person, and it creates a bottleneck. Or you might go, well, actually, we're doing this here, but that also happens over here. So once you've got them written down, then you can look for the potentials to improve. So that, like I say, is either duplication, bottlenecks, things that are just getting in the way altogether, complete blockers, and you hadn't realised until you'd kind of got it in black and white in front of you.
And I guess that once it's written down, that's not it, is it? It's not written down forever. It's going to be a bit of an evolving process that maybe in 6 months or 12 months' time, you're going to look back at that and think, oh, we're starting to do that differently now.
Yeah, so once you've got everything documented, the immediate next step then is making sure that that's actually how everybody's doing it. And it's not just a case of kind of giving them a diagram and giving them a procedure manual and saying, follow this, but it has to become the way that process is done almost without thinking about it, really. It kind of becomes the way that we do things, if you like. So whether that is user manuals and diagrams, but actually more often, people tend to learn better perhaps through videos or, training sessions, or, you can't necessarily expect to give somebody a process map and go, this is how you do it, and for that to work. So you kind of use them as the basis for your training material, where you might want to build in quality assurance. So you might have realised that there's a part in the process where things are a bit higher risk of going wrong, or whatever it is. So then you could build your quality assurance processes around that as well. And then, like you say, Tracy, then comes continuous improvement. You don't just write them up and then put them on a shelf and leave them there. The idea is that things should always be evolving for the better.
I've seen that in the past, actually, where people have gone to a lot of trouble to write a process or done processes, written it, that's job done, put it in that binder, stick it on the shelf, and it's never looked at ever again. It seems it's a pointless exercise then, isn't it? So I have seen that before. I mean, people start off with good intentions, but I suppose, like you say, it's keeping up with the reviewing them and updating them and that sort of thing.
And that is really important. So with the clients that I work with, I always make sure that the format, if you like, of whatever it is that we're producing in the first place actually works for them. There's no point me producing a load of really detailed process maps if nobody is going to use them or wants to try and understand them. It has to be in a format that's useful to them in the first place, and something that they're actually willing and able to kind of maintain on an ongoing basis.
Is there a point when people should start thinking about this? Does that make sense? I mean, how long do you run your business before you think, oh, I better put a process in place now or something? What is the driver that would make you think of that?
It's probably a combination of things, and dependent on what the business is and where they're at and what their aspirations are. But certainly at the point that you have a team of people, or are starting to think, maybe even before that, you're starting to think about employing people and building a team, because actually it can help as part of recruiting and the onboarding and induction process as well. So I think the point at which you go, hang on a minute, I can't do all of this, I need to automate things a little bit perhaps, or I need a way of being able to bring somebody in to help me out. I think that's definitely one of the key drivers. But like I say, I've met directors of companies that have ended up with a couple of years down the line, and they've got teams of sort of 6 or 7 people even before they start going, maybe we should write some of this down. So it just depends really. It's very subjective depending on what you're doing and your management and leadership style. Even it can depend on all sorts of stuff. But I would definitely say the sooner you do it, the better, really.
And I suppose you touched on something else there. I suppose by going through this process, it can help you to automate things that you wouldn't consider you would automate previously. So I suppose that
streamline your business.
So one of the other key elements that I would always look at in terms of systemising your business is technology. So if it is possible to use technology to carry out your processes, you should try and do that as much as possible and as far as possible. Obviously, you need to consider what your kind of vision and strategy is for the business. Don't go buying technology systems just for the sake of it, because that's the tail wagging the dog a bit. But it is definitely a good idea to look at where you might be able to use technology to build into your processes, because it frees the human beings up then to do things that are of better kind of human value and things that we can use our brains for, rather than the repeatable tasks that actually could be done by some form of technology. So talking about technology, like I said, it's important to not just pick a system for the sake of it because everybody else is using it and you think you should be, but to really understand what your business strategy is and where technology fits into that, rather than the other way around. When you're looking at choosing the right system in the first place, there are some things that you can think about. So what's going to help you the most? What's actually going to save you the most time? What's going to create capacity? What's going to bring you the best return on investment? And what will it improve the most? So you're really looking at making things better, so from a quality point of view, but also making things quicker, so efficiencies. So you want to make sure that you're looking at implementing a system that's going to give you the best return on investment, really. And then when you're looking at considering the final package that you're looking for in terms of a system, there are some things that you will probably want to think about ahead of having conversations with the suppliers, just to make sure you're prepared for the sorts of things that they might ask you or that you're going to need to make decisions on. So things like what processes the system's going to be helping with, and whether you're going to need to customise the system in any way. how many people are going to use it and how. So if there are different levels of access within the system, for example, so do you need a manager and a lower level, or do you need super user or admin access? You want to think about what your absolute maximum budget is and whether you've allowed for ongoing costs. And you'll also want to think about what reporting or data you might want out of the system, particularly if you're going to be using it quite a lot for customer data processing, etc. Then that's an extra dimension that you need to think about.
Okay. Cool. And what about from a people point of view? I mean, as part of the process, obviously people are involved. What would you recommend? What would be your top tips for sorting out the people and the processes of handling and dealing with people?
Yeah. So my top tip for people is to really establish what the teams and roles and responsibilities within those teams will look like. So from an overall kind of organisational structure point of view. So giving people clear roles and responsibilities from a business point of view, it improves kind of operational performance overall, really, but you're reducing risk of duplication. You're making sure that everything gets done, so nothing gets missed. It's very clear who needs to do what. It can also help your capacity from the point of view that if you kind of delegate decision making within certain parameters, then that takes away the need for people to come to you to answer questions all the time. And from an employee point of view, it just helps to give them boundaries. It helps them understand what is their responsibility to do and what should somebody else be doing, and it helps them understand who they need to go and ask about different things that need doing. It gives them ownership and accountability, and everybody knows what they're supposed to do and what everybody else is supposed to do. So you should think about what the things are that need doing in your business, both now and in the future, what the volumes of each activity is, and what the flow of activity is as well. And then write out roles and responsibilities that describe not only the tasks, but also the skills and behaviours that might be needed in order to carry out those tasks, and also making sure that the reporting arrangements are clear. So you might have somebody that delegates tasks, might be somebody different to the manager that deals with what you might describe as personnel issues. Depending on the type of business, there are different ways of doing that.
Right. Oh, cool. So
it sounds like there's a lot to think about, but this is something that you can help businesses with, isn't it? It's not left to them, to their own devices. It's something that you can help with.
It is, yeah. And I offer a range of options in terms of the level of support that I can provide. So I'm in the process of developing packages of resources which come as a package with some of my time, but from a guidance point of view to help them kind of implement whatever those solutions are. Or right at the other end of the scale, I can kind of do it all for them. It's always done collaboratively, and it will always be in a way that is suitable and appropriate for them, and making sure that it's something that they can take forwards. But I can kind of do as much of the legwork for them as they need, really.
Yeah, because there's always people who think they can do it themselves, isn't there? And then there's people who just say, nah, you do it. So I suppose if you've got different packages, then that will appeal to different types of people.
Yeah, and I think even those that want to have a go themselves, I think this is why the kind of more DIY resource packages I think seem to be quite useful to people, because it at least means that the methodology or the approach is there, so they might want to do it themselves, and they might be able to do it themselves or have the capacity to do it themselves, but at least it tells them how to do it, so that's part of the headache gone.
Yeah, I think that's what it is, isn't it? It's that guidance, really.
So if people do want to get in touch with you, then Danielle, how do they do that? I assume you're on LinkedIn and those sorts of things.
I am.
And you have a website?
Yeah, I have a website. So the website is dhprofessionalsolutions.co.uk. LinkedIn, I have personal page, so Danielle Heward, and business page, which is DH Professional Solutions. And links from my website will also take you to my Instagram and Twitter pages as well.
Lovely. Because we'll put all those in the show notes anyway, if anyone wants to get in touch with you. And finally, before we go, do you have a networking tip for our listeners today?
I do, yes. So my tip is around listening, which might seem fairly obvious, but it's kind of connected actually with attempting to give advice that might not be needed or wanted. So as humans,
You do that lot with me, don't you, Tracy?
Yeah, you always get somebody, don't you? Some smart mouth who wants to tell you how to do things. Sorry, Danielle, carry on.
Do you mean me?
Yeah.
well,
Sorry,
I
Danielle.
like to think that it's because as humans we inherently want to be helpful.
Helpful.
Exactly. I like to be helpful.
But yes, there are some that just think they know better and that you're doing it wrong and you must do it my way. But regardless, I've been on the receiving end of advice that I didn't want or need, but at the expense of actually being able to explain what advice I could have used or might have wanted. So I think it's my tip is just to listen and then listen some more. So don't jump in with whatever advice you think they need at the start of the conversation. I watched a really good TEDx video on YouTube called How to Tame Your Advice Monster.
We'll have a
right.
look at that one then.
Yeah, we'll get the show, the link for that, and we'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah. It was called what again? Sorry, Danielle. Say again. It was called what?
How to Tame Your Advice Monster.
How to Tame Your Advice
Yeah, it's a guy called Michael Bungay Stanier. Yeah, a bit of a mouthful, but it's a University of Nevada TEDx.
Okay. We'll check that and stick it on the show notes. I'll stick it in the show notes so people can get it.
Yeah, lovely. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, Danielle, and some great advice there and thoughts. Food for thought for people to
Yeah, some
get their
excellent
processes
tips in there and everything.
place.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, appreciate
Yeah,
that.
thank you for having me.
Good to have you with us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And
Take
thank
care.
you again. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you later. Bye. We're almost at the end of this week's show, but before we go, we're excited to tell you about our In Business Talks 2 episode this coming Tuesday. Our special guests on next week's podcast are Alison and Ray of Al Ray Hypnotherapy. We're really looking forward to speaking to them and digging deeper into their experiences as a business couple.
Thanks so much for joining us this week on In Business Talks 2 Friday Fix. We hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, all we ask is that you simply tell a friend about the show. We'd really appreciate it. So, until next time, this is Ian and Tracy, and together
We are in business. Goodbye.
Goodbye.